Knowing that the woman is pregnant with someone else's child, the man still chooses to marry her because at the first sight of the woman, a long purple dress with a beautiful and generous face, the man was completely captivated. After a brief conversation, the two were married in the church. Due to the haste, the man blamed himself for not being able to buy a ring, but the woman didn't care because as far as she was concerned, she married him to avoid the gossip. After a long time, the car drove to a meadow. Maybe she's used to living in a big house. The woman hated the simple house, but remembering her father's advice, she gave up the idea of leaving in contrast to her indifference. The man was very enthusiastic. He introduced her to the furniture in the house. He prepares the cleanest bedroom for her, but the man doesn't realize where he can't see. The woman wears a necklace with her ex-boyfriend's picture engraved on it. In order to let the woman adapt to life as soon as possible, the man took the woman to the lake, looking at the small lake with calm waves. Touching the cool water, the woman is instantly relaxed and even looks at the man a little more handsome. Seeing the woman enjoying the coolness brought by the breeze, the man smiled gently. Suddenly, he heard the woman ask if she could swim here. The man could only answer that the lake is too deep. It's too dangerous to go into the water. On the way back, the woman quietly sent a letter. It was addressed to her ex-boyfriend. When the woman returned home, a huge excavator appeared in the grassland. The woman was puzzled. The man replied that he would dig a natural swimming pool for the woman. The man remembers everything the woman said. This was the first time the man had ever touched a backhoe. Although he almost lost control a few times, he still insisted on doing it. Looking at the man's clumsy and serious look, the woman's heart felt indescribable. During the break, the woman prepared a pizza for the man. This was also the first time she entered the kitchen, but the man got stuck after one bite. It's not because it's good, but because it's too salty. The man didn't want to let the woman down. When the woman left, he secretly took a sip of water to ease the pain. It's just after sunrise, the woman told the man she wanted to call home to tell her she was safe. The man did not refuse. He took her to a small town a few dozen miles away and silently walked into a bookstore and bought a book on postpartum care. The owner enthusiastically celebrated the man's impending baby. The man politely answered thank you and also looked at the woman in the phone booth. But the man didn't know the original call to his father has now become a call to her sister. The woman asked her sister if her ex-boyfriend had received the letter, but her sister told her her ex-boyfriend had already found a new lover. On the way home, a man teaches a woman to drive. First, for the woman's convenience. Secondly, it's for the woman to make phone calls in town when the man isn't home. In a few minutes, the woman was able to control the steering wheel freely. She smiled happily. That night, the two of them were invited to the town's annual celebration. When it came to the dancing part, the man had secretly learned to dance for a long time and finally put it to use. He danced happily with the woman. When the woman saw the strange dance moves of the people around her, the woman laughed happily. The man laughed with her. The woman is slowly getting into the life here. She went to the town to buy food as usual. On her way, she was attracted to an old wooden house. It was very seductive for a woman who was an archaeologist. She quickly took everything in her car and drove home. And when she got home, she made a point of showing it to the man. Maybe even the woman herself did not realize she was slowly accepting the man. But the next day, when the woman went out and came back, but found that everything had been burned by the man. For the first time, the gentle woman lost her temper. The man could only put out the fire in a panic to save as many things as possible. But the angry woman could not easily forgive him. When the woman woke up, she found a piece of paper on the table, apologizing to the woman. It also told her that there were a lot of century-old items in the basement. The woman picked out the contents. She wiped them carefully. The woman was no longer angry. As we get along, the woman realized that although this man was honest, he had a special personal charm. She's starting to look like a wife. Winter came faster than usual this year. The woman brought her puppy inside to keep her warm. She prepared a candlelight dinner to celebrate her first anniversary, and then the man came home. But the man was very upset. He kicked the puppy out of the house. He handed the woman a letter. It was a letter from her ex-boyfriend. At this moment, the woman doesn't know how to explain. It's true that she married a woman to avoid gossip, but now the woman has a crush on the man. The man didn't open the envelope, but he was still very angry. He cares a lot about her, but the woman's heart is always filled with that irresponsible ex-boyfriend. The woman cried silently. The man didn't say anything. He just stood with her all night. The woman thanked her family for taking care of her for the past year, but the conversation revealed that she was leaving. When the woman went into her room to clean up, she saw the man standing in the doorway. The dog was lying on the floor, wagging its tail. The man's eyes were red from crying. Then he said to the woman, "I love you. I also love the baby inside you. Please don't leave me." The woman was very touched. The man took out the ring that was missing when they got married. He gently put it on the woman's hand. The two of them got back together. That day, the woman got the news that her best friend's boyfriend had returned. She had met him on a farm. During the conversation, the woman could tell at once the man was a deserter who had recently appeared in the newspaper. She guessed that the man had contacted her in order to avoid arrest, so she found a reason to drop them off on the road. She drove them all the way back to her home. The woman deliberately left her car keys in the most obvious place until she heard the sound of a car leaving the house. The woman called the police. Then she put the men's clothes in a basin. She poured gasoline on them and set them on fire. Then she threw in her ex-boyfriend's necklace. At that moment, the man came back. The woman told her husband that the baby was about to be born. The husband picked up the woman and took her to the hospital. The soldiers who escaped were caught, and their son was born. Outside the house, it was freezing cold. Inside, the house is cozy. The man picked up his son unskillfully. He hummed a lullaby. The son was mesmerized by the man's voice. The woman was mesmerized by the man's honest face. Time flies, winter and spring came and went. They took their son on a trip. Some people say that instead of a love affair, it's better to enjoy long-lasting companionship, maybe for each other, to each other. An ordinary life together is far more touching than promises without action.